The UK government claimed it's going to have the toughest internet laws in the world. In a plan outlined in the Online Harms White Paper, it suggests penalising or even blocking websites that fail to take down potentially harmful content, covering everything from child abuse to disinformation. But as Polly Boyko explains, there are fears that when there's regulation, there's also censorship.
Too much freedom can be dangerous. That's the message from the UK government, which has unveiled ambitious new plans to oversee the safest corner of the internet. The country that's famous for bringing you Mary Poppins is aiming to be the world's best online nanny.
We're putting a legal duty of care on these companies to keep users safe. And if they fail to do so, tough punishments will be imposed. The era of social media firms regulating themselves is over. It's time to do things differently. It's time to keep our children safe.
So how is the British government going to make the UK the safest place to enjoy the net? Well, for starters, there are going to be some strict new rules. Any company that allows online interaction will be responsible for their users' safety, as well as the content that appears on their services. In the most obvious examples, it will mean purging illegal material related to terrorist and child sexual exploitation and abuse. And if companies fail to clean up their act, the likes of Facebook and Twitter will be put on the naughty step by a new independent regulator for the internet. Companies will face substantial fines for failing to pull down dangerous or extremist materials. If the fines don't work, bosses of the offending firms could be liable to criminal prosecution. And if that fails too, websites could be blocked entirely for UK internet users.
And that regulator should have teeth. So we're going to consult not just on remedial notices, on fines, and that can be up to 4% of global turnover.
At the moment, none of this is law yet. There'll be 12 weeks of public consultation. Only after that, draft legislation will be drawn up. But there are already concerns over the prospect of tough new regulations.
There's so much content out there that can just influence, well, really anybody, but especially like the younger generation kids.
I would slightly maybe disagree. I think the internet is something which is open, and it was actually a good thing that it was always open and not regulated by any form of government or whatever.
I think it's probably a good idea. I think there's not enough regulation around. I think it's a pretty good idea.
I think it's a good idea to have some protection in there, but it depends how stringent and how close they are to everyday stuff.
Internet needs better regulation.
Yes,
most definitely.
Why?
1, 2, 3, 4. That's why.
And then the government says it wants to remove what it calls harmful content. But who will be the arbiter of what stays up and what goes down?
So those social media companies will have to do two things. First is to set out filters, processes and procedure to show that they are doing whenever they can in order to prevent material that could potentially cause serious harm to young children and other people. And second, they will have to react in a speedy manner to any request to remove such material.
At the moment, the government is still deciding whether the job of regulating should fall on the shoulders of a new independent body or an existing one like broadcast regulator Ofcom. And when it comes to the big social media firms, well, like students craving more stringent discipline, Facebook has tentatively welcomed the plan for greater government oversight, with a caveat or two.
These are complex issues to get right, and we look forward to working with the government and Parliament to ensure new regulations are effective.
The UK government says it wants to be a trailblazer, but the question is how to implement stricter safety measures without restricting freedom of the internet.